Hello, Fairfax County Public Schools. This is Dr. Brabrand, your superintendent. I so appreciate you turning out tonight to our town hall as we talk to you about return to school. We've just heard the governor's announcement yesterday afternoon, and we're glad to be here to interact with all of you and try to answer some of your questions as we work and plan for return to school this fall. I'm joined today by Dr. Sloan Presidio, our Assistant Superintendent for Instructional Resources, and by Dr. Helen Nixon, our Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources. We're glad to have them here this evening. We are socially distanced here in the Sprague studio, and we're glad to have this opportunity to come to you without the restrictions of Zoom or any of the other online video conferencing tools. Yesterday, as you know, we did receive guidance from the Governor of Virginia and from the Secretary of Education and State Superintendent around return to school. And I want you to know that we are working hard to prepare for those return to school scenarios. We will be presenting to the Fairfax County Public School Board on Monday, June 15th, and then later also on June 23rd. We want to share with them, and the school board shares with all of us, the importance of returning to school in a safe manner for all of our students and all of our employees. And we'll be working closely with them and our entire community as we continue to work on return to school. I want you to know that today is the final week of school, and I want to thank all of our FCPS employees for their extraordinary efforts these last few months. You truly have gone above and beyond in this pandemic, and we truly appreciate it. I also want to say to all of our employees in these last few weeks with the murder of George Floyd and the racial unrest in our country that we are going to continue to work to make equity front and center in Fairfax County Public Schools. We have done some work, but we have far more work to do, and we acknowledge that we have to do more, and we will. I want you to know that now is time for you to share with us your ideas, and I want to be sure that you know we do have several guiding principles. We want our staff to be healthy and safe. We want our students to be healthy and safe as well, and we want them to be able to come back to school in an environment where they can learn and grow. I know tonight what is on your mind is how is back to school going to look? What are the different scenarios? How will it really look? What are the logistics? We've done a lot of work. We don't have every question yet answered, but we're going to do our best tonight to give you our collective best thinking as we approach this challenging task. Finally, I want you to know that tonight is just the beginning of getting your feedback on how we're going to move forward. We'll be doing a survey to staff later in this week and actually out to our parents, getting information to them and to you all about your comfort level in returning to school. What are some of the considerations that you want us to know about as we plan our return to school? Maybe it's childcare, maybe it's health and safety. We know there are many issues on your minds, and we want to be able to address them. The survey will have some specific questions, and there'll also be the opportunity for some open-ended questions. I'll also be working to reach out to all of you and to our community with a website and a address where you can share in just your own thoughts and comments about return to school. I want you to know that during this unprecedented time, we are committed now more than ever to listening to you, to making sure your voice is being heard. And we're going to do everything we can to make that happen. So now, as we begin this program, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Sloan Presidio, who's been really a captain in helping lead our Return to School Task Force. And Sloan, Dr. Presidio, is going to talk through a few PowerPoint slides for you, and then we'll move on to the next part of our program. Dr. Presidio.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Brabrand. Very excited to be here tonight, and good evening to all of the Fairfax County Public Schools community. I'm happy to be here with Dr. Brabrand and Dr. Nixon to address and answer any questions that you might have about our return to school initial plans and initial thinking. But I'd like to start out with just a little bit of background information about some of our initial plans. The town hall outcomes for this evening is to provide information on those reopening plans, to review some of those return to school scenarios, and then of course, most importantly, to provide opportunities for you to ask questions and for us to do our best to address them and answer them. So starting out this evening, I'd like to share some of our guiding principles that we've been working on as a school system to develop our return or reopening of schools plans. And the first, as Dr. Brabrand said, is to make sure that we can ensure that all of our students have safe learning environments and all of our staff have safe working environments. It's also very important to us to make sure that when we do reopen schools in the fall, that we can meet all of the state and federal guidelines and standards for a high-quality education. Additionally, we know that we need to make sure that all of our students have all of the necessary supports for them to be successful. That includes connectivity with one-to-one learning devices, opportunities to get additional social emotional supports, and opportunities to make sure that we're supporting the whole child and ensuring that all of our students have opportunities to have a successful transition back into the in-school setting. Additionally, we're working very hard to make sure that all of our staff members have the time to prepare for a successful school reopening, that you have all of the training, support, and resources that you need to have to be successful in the return. And then finally, and most importantly for this evening's conversation, is communication. We need to ensure that we have two-way communication with all of our stakeholders and make sure that all of our communication is translated so that all of our families and community members can participate in this dialogue and planning together. Additionally, I'd like to share some information about the different reopening scenarios that we're planning. The first scenario is a virtual learning opportunity for all students. So that's similar to what we're doing now with distance learning during spring term. However, it would be different if we have to go into this scenario at any point in time next school year, because we'll be providing enhanced resources, materials, and supports to all of our students, including connectivity and one-to-one learning devices, digital resources to support our students that need additional academic supports and interventions, and making sure that we're providing the best opportunities for students to connect with their teachers and with each other. What I want you to understand about a virtual start to the school year is that if we happen to find ourselves in a virtual learning environment next year, it will be because we've had to close schools again due to a continued outbreak in an individual school or schools across the school division. So that's the first scenario, virtual learning at some point next school year. Where we really hope to be is scenario 2, and that's returning with health and safety guidelines in place, including social distancing. And we're preparing for that return this fall with different scenarios where we would bring students back into school, either at a 50% capacity perhaps, or some reduced capacity, so that we could ensure all of our social distancing practices and plans and health and safety guidelines are in place. We're going to continue to build out that scenario and make sure that we're collecting, as Dr. Brabrand said, information from staff and parents and families about how they would feel about a return to school with social distancing. The third scenario that we're working to develop is to provide an opportunity of choice for full-time online learning next school year. We want to be able to provide that opportunity to students that may have severe health and medical risks, and they may be individual health or medical risks, or they could be health or medical risks for other family members that they're in close contact with. And we believe that that's important. If we can create an online learning environment full-time for those students, we believe that we can support them in being successful next school year, and we believe that we will have staff members as well who might be interested in teaching in that type of learning environment. So those are the three scenarios that we're planning for at this time. Additionally, I'd like to share some information about supports for staff. And first and foremost is we're working to make sure that staff members can feel safe and secure in returning to work. The first component of that is making sure that we have all the flexibility and supports that we can provide in place. We're currently working, and Dr. Nixon can elaborate more on this in our discussion this evening, but we're currently working to update and revise our telework regulations. We also want to make sure that all of our staff members understand all of their legal rights and benefits to leave. And we stand ready to support all of our employees with helping to understand what those rights are. Additionally, we're working to ensure that we can provide personal protective equipment to all of our staff members. That includes things like masks, gloves, and in certain instances, depending on the job, face shields or gowns. We need to make sure that all of our staff members feel safe and secure in returning. We also want to make sure that all of our staff members know that health and wellness for you and your families is foremost in our minds. And we'll continue to provide you with all the supports that we have at our disposal to do so. Finally, we also know that staff members are going to need training and support and professional development and coming back, including things like how to teach in a virtual learning environment and how to meet students' enhanced social emotional needs. And finally, we understand that a lot of our staff members have childcare issues that they're facing. So we're working to figure out what type of flexibility and support that we can provide to employees who might have school-aged children of their own that attend schools in Fairfax County Public Schools. So those are just some of the supports and resources that we're planning at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Presidio. We really appreciate that. I know staff will have several questions for you, but I do want to have an opportunity now to introduce again Dr. Helen Nixon, our Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources. And Helen and her team have been working extraordinary long hours, as all of us have, on your behalf to help get ready to support our staff as we look at return to school for next year. And now I'm going to let Dr. Nixon share some comments.
Great. Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. I'm honored to be here this evening to share a couple of comments from the Human Resources Office to first and foremost thank all of our employees for their diligent work, for their heartfelt efforts to make certain that every day we are doing everything that we can to be in service to our students and to our communities. These difficult times that Dr. Brabrand has outlined for us has been new territory for everyone. And from our office in Human Resources, we want to extend our gratitude and our awe for all of the efforts that you have brought forward. It truly has been inspiring. And we know how grateful our children and our families are for all of these efforts. And we know that we have had our employees teleworking, but we have also had many of our employees who have been reporting to the actual work site. And for all those efforts and all those endeavors, we are thankful, and we want to make sure that you know this evening all of the things that weigh on your mind about returning to the work environment are comments that we have heard anecdotally that have been shared with us from our association partners, emails that we have received in HR, and our HR action team under the leadership of Dr. Brabrand and Dr. Presidio. We have come together to really try to unpack what these challenges have been and are looking to fortify the resources that we have and the information that we know that you need to be very user-friendly and accessible. So we continue to work very hard to make sure that the questions that you have are answered, that they are answered in a timely manner, and that we provide those resources for you on our website. But also, should you have case-by-case kinds of needs, we certainly invite you to contact our HR office, to send me an email so that we can make sure that individual questions that might have very specific needs are being met and addressed. So we know that some of these issues are complex and complicated and need navigation, and we stand ready to help you through that. So once again, I am very honored to be here tonight, and we hope that this conversation answers some of the questions that you have. We know that there will be questions that perhaps we don't get to, but we will make every effort going forward to make certain that you have the information and the resources that you need.
Thank you, Dr. Nixon. Really appreciate it. Now it's time to move on to your calls, to hear your voice, and we look forward to taking your emails and phone calls over the next hour. And some of you have shared emails, and let's start with a couple of the emails first, and there should be information out there too about how you can call in or email us for the remainder of the program. So the first question is, what can we, teachers, do to make distance learning better? And I know, actually, Dr. Presidio, we're going to spend we've been spending a lot of time actually reviewing that. We're going to be sending out a survey asking how we can do distance learning better. What are our lessons learned from this spring, this fourth quarter? But we're also already planning professional development for the summer for all of our staff. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I really appreciate that question, so thank you very much for that. We are working very diligently to make sure that we can provide training for staff when you return in August, to make sure that all staff members have the support that they need to teach effectively in a virtual learning environment, using both virtual strategies and what we would call blended learning strategies, so mixing the in-person instruction with instruction in a virtual setting. But more importantly, we're working really, really hard to make sure that our teachers have the curriculum resources and the materials that you need to be successful. And we really had to scramble when we closed school in March. We didn't have materials and resources ready to go. So we're in the process of developing enhanced curriculum guides for teachers, really focusing on the essential content standards to make the expectations for coverage for next year reasonable and doable for teachers and for students. And we're adopting new curriculum materials and digital resources that will be more what we call student-facing and can be used to support students both individually, in small groups, and large groups. So we're working really hard to make sure that you have the training, the resources, and the materials to be successful.
Thank you, Dr. Presidio. One of the things I'd also like to share with staff, I've just had an opportunity today to review the professional development calendar for next year, and our OPLFE folks have been working very hard to solidify that calendar. I know it's something that teachers and staff love to have as we're finishing up this school year, to really begin to plan and understand what professional development will look like for next year. So that calendar is all but finished and really should be out to each and every one of you as we close this week and you wrap up this school year. So we're very excited, and yes, we're all going to have to, during these challenging times, continue to learn together and be the professional learning community that's part of our theory of action. So look forward to getting that calendar out to you. Our next question is, does FCPS have a plan if many staff decide not to return this fall? I would tell you that we have not seen significant numbers of staff sharing a preference or an indication that they are not going to return. We do know how important it is, though, to reach out to our staff, and we're going to be working, as I said, with a staff survey to talk to you all about your levels of comfort for returning in the fall and what we can do to better support that. And we'll also be working to get a letter out from our Human Resources Department to make sure that you are as comfortable as possible as we're preparing to return to school, and that you know about all of our leave programs and our current options through the CARES Act. I want to mention, too, though, with that question, that we have been very busy at work, even in a remote and virtual way, of hiring teachers for the next year. And I'd like Dr. Nixon to talk a little bit about the virtual job fairs and opportunities we've been doing to continue the business of bringing the best and the brightest teachers, diverse teachers from all over this Commonwealth and country to Fairfax County Public Schools. Dr. Nixon.
Thank you, Dr. Brabrand. While our preference is always to have face-to-face relationships with our potential candidates, we've had to adjust, certainly, and recruiting trips and job fairs that had been scheduled for face-to-face, obviously in a COVID environment, we had to retool the way we were going to conduct our virtual job fairs. And at the end of May, we had 3 virtual job fairs, and we are very excited to be able to share that they were extremely well attended. Our talent acquisition office continues to hire. I want to also acknowledge our team, our fingerprinting and background checking team, who are taking appointments at Gatehouse. We know how important it is to kind of keep the trains running, and our team has done an extraordinary effort to make certain that we can be responsive to the needs of the school, so that we can ensure that all of the right processes are in place to make sure that we can stand up our instructional programs in the fall. And so our team at Gatehouse has been double timing it and working so diligently to make sure all of those processes are in place. So we continue to be a destination district. We continue to hire, and our team is ready and accepting phone calls and applications and doing touch base and screenings every single day. So we are excited about the future. Our team in HR is working with our team in OPLFE. We're looking at wonderful plans for great beginnings. So we are approaching this work with great enthusiasm and great energy, because we know that our students are going to be excited about what's coming up in the coming school year, and we want to make sure that we are providing all the necessary excitement and that we are providing all of the necessary programs to make sure that we are ready.
Thank you, Dr. Nixon. Let's see if there's some additional questions. What do I do if someone on my staff tests positive? I want you to know this is an important question. We're already working and have been working since the beginning of this pandemic closely with the health department around these issues of testing and finding identified employees or students with COVID-19. We're going to continue to work very closely with them and rely on their guidance around testing, around contact tracing investigations. Many of you know that the governor is committed to expanding testing here in Virginia. That's been one of the indicators as the governor looked at return to learn. And we're continuing to use that state health guidance and use our local health department to interpret that state health guidance so that we can do everything we can if that kind of situation happens, to have the health department come in, assess the situation, and provide the specific guidance. It will be done in collaboration with the health department. Every single one of these cases will be done in collaboration with the health department, and we will take the necessary action based on the Council of Medical Professionals. Let's take a phone call now and see what's on folks' minds.
Go ahead, caller.
All right, caller, go ahead. We're waiting to see if a phone call can come in. If not, I'm sure we have a few other questions that we have via email, and maybe we'll see if we can get back to having that caller come in. The next question is, what can be done regarding staff members who have high-risk health issues? Will they be allowed to work virtually rather than in schools? I would want to share, and then I'll let Dr. Nixon elaborate if she'd like, that we want to work very closely with all of our employees, every employee by name and by need, as we look at return to school. There are a lot of factors that go into determining that. The state guidance, of course, did say that we need to work very carefully with our employees who are at risk for severe illness, and we are committed to doing just that. We will work closely with you. You can reach out to our benefits office now if you already know about a medical concern that you have. We have our benefits office, too, to look at all the different leave options, and we have specific options under the CARES Act that we previously shared with employees and that we want to make sure that you are aware of now. Dr. Nixon, is there anything else that you would want to add from what I've shared?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Brabrand. As Dr. Brabrand alluded at the top of the hour, we are going to be sending a communication out through principals and program managers to gauge the conditions in which our employees find themselves. There will be a question around child care. And so we are going to be collecting data through principals and program managers. And if you have a high-risk health condition, you are under doctor's care, your principal and or program manager will work very closely with you and the benefits office to make sure that your health priorities are certainly taken into consideration, and that everything will be done to make sure that those needs are taken care of. So yes, if you have high-risk health issues, we will be working with you. So rest assured about that.
Thank you, Dr. Nixon. Our next question is there a plan for long-term subs given that some teachers may become ill and need to quarantine at home for 2 weeks? We don't have a specific plan at this point around long-term subs. We still have many substitutes here for Fairfax County Public Schools, and we want to continue and will need to be able to use them now more than ever. We're wanting to do everything we can to be sure that we're limiting the impact in the classroom next year. And so one of the things that I've been working with staff on is, to the greatest extent possible, limiting professional development next year that pulls teachers from the classroom. We really want to significantly limit the amount of professional development that does that, because now more than ever, our students are going to need our teachers with them in classrooms every day, or to the greatest extent possible. So we're going to do everything we can to limit professional development. We very much value our subs. We raised our sub rate for retirees just 2 years ago, and we want folks to continue to be part of substituting in Fairfax County Public Schools. Now we'll take a phone call.
Hello?
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. I'm calling. I'm not a teacher, but I work for Fairfax County Public Schools, and I'm a processor, and I was wondering when we will be returning to work.
Well, you are part of the Fairfax County Public Schools family. We are all educators supporting kids and their families in the Fairfax County community. Thanks for calling in. You know, the governor announced yesterday that Phase 2 for Northern Virginia would begin effective this Friday. We just got that information. We're going to be working very carefully to review that. And we recognize as we work on returning to school for our students, we have to develop an appropriate plan around returning to schools and offices for our staff. Even in Phase 2, I want to be clear that the governor has encouraged teleworking as much as possible for all employees. So we will continue to do that. However, as you know, right after the pandemic hit here in mid-March, we did close schools for further notice. And the reality is that that further notice, the moment of that further notice is arriving as the governor has declared Phase 2. So we will be working with the school board and our leadership team to come up with a plan over the summer to reopen our offices and schools. Next phone call, please.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a nice evening. Thanks for calling in. Phone call. Next phone call, please. Hello. This is Dr. Brabrand. Do you have a phone call for us today in the town hall?
Hey, I was just wondering if when we are going to be provided teachers with a detailed report that explains why we aren't going to get the step increase or a step increase. Obviously, we come into this profession to not, obviously, we aren't going to get rich with it. But I was just wondering when we're going to be provided with a detailed report, because it seems like the distance learning packets are the reason behind why we aren't going to get the step increase. We're not even getting the living wage increase. So I was just wondering when we're going to be provided with a detailed report that explains exactly why our living wage isn't going up and our salaries being frozen.
Sure. No, that's a great question. Compensation, as you know, has been a top priority of mine and the school board for several years. And I'm really proud that over the last 2 or 3 years, we really got our teachers to market competitive across all the scales. And we were able to do a step and cost of living adjustment for all of our employees. I did send out an email shortly, a couple of weeks ago, I guess, a short time ago, sharing the summary of the budget. We had asked for almost $85 million, but obviously the county, just like the schools, had to dramatically recast their budgets. We had to reduce that to only about $7 million, and neither the county nor the school system was able to provide salary increases for their employees. I am very proud to say I've worked closely with County Executive Brian Hill, and our school board has worked closely with the Board of Supervisors. We're going to take a quarter-by-quarter approach to revenues for the county, and we'll continue to work with them about first, as we've done in this budget, keeping the Fairfax County family intact, but also as we come together for this coming school year, what can we do as soon as possible to recognize the extraordinary contributions of our employees? So we'll be looking at that quarter to quarter. The governor is also suggesting and said yesterday that he plans to call back the General Assembly in late July and August to relook at budget numbers. We hope that the governor will keep education a priority. He was about to give the largest support for K-12 in decades, and we would like to see that commitment follow through. In addition, his budget had included support for salary increases for our teachers and our educational employees. So stay tuned. We're committed during this budget time, especially as Virginia begins to reopen, that as we can and the revenues are in, that we can turn that right back out into the employees and into your paychecks. Next caller, please.
Hi. I have a question about if there's a plan for students with severe disabilities that can't really access online learning to have increased in-person time. So like students in enhanced DOT sometimes can't access the online learning, or severe intellectual disability students. So is there going to be a plan for those kids?
Yeah, I'll let Dr. Presidio take a crack at that first, and then I'll be glad to add anything else if Dr. Nixon or I have to share.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Brabrand, and thank you for that great question. First of all, the governor's plans that were released yesterday really lay out the ability for us to bring certain student populations back and give them additional in-person services. And so we have the ability to do that. We are making plans to try to identify students that would be at the highest level of need. And certainly that would be defined by things like the IEP services that they need or the English language development services that they need. So there are certainly opportunities for us to do that, and we are making those plans. We also have to balance out the health and safety medical risks. And a lot of our students that are in some of these high incidence populations also might have some health and medical risks. So we're working on that right now. And the number one thing that I want all of our families and parents to know is that we wouldn't compel those students to come back if families felt that that it wasn't safe to do so early. So we'd be working very closely with the teachers, with the principals, and with the families to make those decisions. So thank you. It's a great question.
I'd also just like you to know that we're preparing for the school board next week and for the public a budget around our CARES Act stimulus money and a COVID reserve that the school board passed in the budget. And part of that money has dollars for intervention and supports for kids next year, including for our special education kids, so that we can provide those needed additional supports and interventions and even look at additional support, not just during the school day, but even after school. And you'll be seeing, and the school board will be reviewing that budget on Monday. Now we're going to take a look at an email that says, I'm a middle school phys ed teacher. My gym classes typically have 40 kids. Will they be allowed to use the locker room to dress out? How are we going to social distance that situation? There are 8 physical education teachers at my school, at least 2 or 3 classes going on at a time. Well, I'm sure you're going to tell me how we're going to make that work, but honestly, we know that one of the big things the governor shared yesterday is that we need to, throughout any of the phases, phase 2 or phase 3, is to be able to maintain 6-foot social distancing wherever possible or to the greatest extent possible. We know there is no way in any school that you can say at every single moment that a kid will be 6 feet away from another child. Certainly, a gym class is one of the best examples for that. But we are working closely with our teams around how do we create social distancing in our classrooms, in our, including our elective programs, our gyms. And I want you to know, too, Bill Curran has been working very closely with the Virginia High School League, who is our key point person for our activities and athletics, around how we'll have a return to play plan along with our return to school plan. You'll be seeing more information about that actually on Monday when we present our return to school scenarios. So we'll be really working hard to figure out how we're going to work with kids in a gym area. And honestly, we're going to really be trying to do everything we can to have kids outside doing these kind of physical education activities as much as possible. The next is an email, will staff receive hazard pay? I'm going to let Dr. Nixon share a little bit about that. And I know we've done stuff during actually this pandemic to provide additional pay for some of our frontline workers who've been public facing. So Dr. Nixon.
Yes. So many of our staff members who have been pivotal in standing up our food distribution sites and our technology distribution sites, because this work was public facing, did receive premium pay. But the criteria for receiving that premium pay was that their day-to-day transaction was going to require them to wear PPE at all times and to interface with the public.
So we've been able to do that during this closure, and we're continued to be committed to giving compensation for all of our employees. As we return to school, our primary objective, as we shared at the top of the hour, is to continue to make sure that our employees and students are safe. We don't want any of our schools to be a hazard for any of our students, staff, or families. So we will continue to make compensation a key priority for all of our employees And during the pandemic and the school closure, we really have worked hard to provide additional pay and compensation for those during this time. So thank you for your question. Another question is, if we go with a hybrid model, what is the responsibility of school-based specialists, counselors, librarians, PE teachers, art, music, etc.? I think I'm going to let Dr. Presidio talk about that, but I want to be very, very clear. All of our return to school scenarios do involve having all of our specialists and our electives teachers front and center as part of the educational experience for our children. Dr. Presidio, would you like to say a little bit more about that?
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Brabrand. I think the first thing that I would like to say is thank you to all of our specialists who are in these roles in our schools. We know that you've been playing a critical role during distance learning this spring, providing direct instructional services and supports to students, supporting the classroom teachers, helping them plan, helping them assess, reaching out to students that we need to have greater connections with, and we want to thank you for that. When we return to school with our new scenarios in place for the fall, we want to have enhanced opportunities for all of those specialized programs to be able to provide direct instruction to students, just as Dr. Brabrand said. And the reason for that is that we know that's going to increase student engagement, and it's going to provide us with a whole child approach to education, which is exactly what our students are going to need when they come back from an extended closure period.
Thank you, Dr. Presidio. We now have a phone call. So caller, hello.
Hi.
Welcome to the town hall. How are you doing?
I am okay. How are you?
I'm fine. I'm fine. Good to hear from you.
I am looking for some clarification regarding the support for staff and your child care proposal. It stated that it says that all teachers with elementary age children will be allowed to have their child in school, as a full-time option. Is that a guarantee right now, or is that just something you all are considering?
No, that's a great question. I wish it were a guarantee right now, but I have to be directly honest with you. That's an aspiration rather than an expectation at this moment. We are working very closely with child care providers across the county. Mara Burke, who is our director for early education, is really reaching out. We're still exploring some ideas with other partners. I don't have the answer yet, but I would love to be able. We're talking with other regional school districts about child care issues, and we know that this is an important consideration for many of our staff. So I know I read the PowerPoint slide too, saying yes, that this is what we would like to do, but it is not a guarantee yet. I would love to be able to say that it will be, but I can't promise it yet. But we are going to do everything we can to figure out how we can make this not a barrier for our teachers so that they can, if we're back in school in the fall, in a staggered schedule, in that hybrid that Dr. Presidio talked about, that child care doesn't have to be a deal breaker for our staff. We'll take another phone call. Hello, caller. Hello, this is Dr. Brabrand.
Hi, I have a question about special ed students.
Okay.
What do we do with our students who have low service hours and receive most of their support in the general education classroom and are only receiving an hour or two of service in the special education setting?
Well, let me take that. One of the things we've really done is we've had a lot of lessons learned during this pandemic in this fourth quarter. We've tried, and I think as you look around the Commonwealth and the country, we've provided more face-to-face learning and supports than I think many, many school districts have done. Has it been enough? No. But we have worked and gone above and beyond, our staff have, to provide more kinds of direct service to kids in a virtual face-to-face environment than many districts across the Commonwealth and the country. We are planning, as you have seen, the virtual scenario, and the virtual scenario for the fall will look quite different from the virtual scenario that we had fourth quarter. We will have more face-to-face, synchronous or face-to-face instructional time for those students than we had this fourth quarter. So we know that we need to do more of it, and we will be doing that in the fall if we are back in a virtual, fully virtual setting. So thank you for that call and appreciate you calling in tonight. Now we'll take another phone call. Caller, thank you for coming for the town hall tonight and calling in.
Hello.
Yes. Hi, caller. Do you have a question for us here on the town hall for Fairfax County Public Schools?
Yes, I do.
All righty. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yes, sir. Go ahead. Glad to hear you. Glad to have you here.
Thank you. I teach at a high school. I'm wondering, I'm betting that we're going to be doing a social distancing thing where we have less than 100% of the students in the school at one time. What are going to be the requirements for students wearing masks? Is there going to be any kind of clear plastic barriers put up around the desk in the hallway? I mean, not in the hallway, in the classroom.
Okay.
As much separation between teachers and students as is practical.
Yes, absolutely. So let me tell you a little bit about the governor's guidance that we just got yesterday and what work we are doing. The governor gave guidance in phase 2 or phase 3. We are required to do everything we can to maintain 6 feet social distancing to the greatest extent possible. So first, we are going to work very hard around the spacing of students within each of our classrooms. The standard square feet for a high school classroom, I think in our renovated schools, is about 800 square feet. It's a little less than that in some of our older high schools. So first, we need to do the best we can to maximize space within that classroom, including even the configuration of where the teacher desk is in classrooms. And actually, I've just sat with other region school districts really going through and looking like an architect would exactly at how to maximize space. The other is when we know there may be moments where kids are going to get up to sharpen a pencil or to walk up to turn in an assignment, or if in, say, high school where we're having kids do a transition, whether it's staggered or not, to go between classes, that we're really going to have to look hard at what our expectation for wearing mask is. The governor did provide some recommendations around mask wearing for kids, recommending it when social distancing was not possible. It was not a requirement given. But we have the ability as a school district to have tighter and stricter decisions around PPE for our staff and students. We haven't made a final decision, but I can tell you that I think this is one of the issues where we have to look about what's best for Fairfax and for Northern Virginia and look at the health conditions and the priority that we need to place on making sure that when we have transitions or when kids are in tighter areas, what we can do around PPE or other additional ways, you mentioned barriers, to make sure that kids are protected and our staff too. So we'll be looking at all of that and be sharing that with you and with the school board and community in the next 2 weeks.
Thank you. May I ask a second question?
Yes, sir, you can. What's your second question?
Again, supposing that that half the students are going to be home, is the general thought that the half that are at home are going to listen to the live broadcast from the classroom?
So that's something we're still looking at. I would say to you that that's something we're still looking at. The models that we've had have been a blend of face-to-face and what we call synchronous or asynchronous instruction. But we need to weigh the impact of having teachers trying to do in their classroom support for kids that are there face-to-face along with doing blended learning. I think we've really got to be careful about limiting the expectations on our teachers for doing too much of trying to be present for the kids in the classroom while providing at the same time online face-to-face. So I'm not going to rule it out at this point, but I think it's something we have to very, very carefully consider. We want to set our students up for success as they return to school, but we want to set our staff up for success as well. So we'll be taking a close, hard look at that, and we will be giving definitive answers and working as we bring this to the board around this as we wrap up this month and prepare for the fall. So we will be getting a handle on that very, very shortly. Thank you for calling in and for those two questions. Another question from our email is, can I retire early? I'm going to let Dr. Nixon give the formal answer, but I want to say something right now to Fairfax County Public School staff. I know this is a moment unlike any other we have ever faced, and I know there may be reasons that you need to, for your medical needs, to make a decision to retire, and I entirely respect them. I hope many of you will also think about our students and our community and make the decision to stay another year in Fairfax County Public Schools. I know it's a national conversation. Will our students return? Will our teachers return? Will our educators return? And I simply just need to say from my heart, I can't say exactly what that return looks like yet, but I can say this, and I know with a full heart, every child right now needs us more than ever as educators to be there for them as they face going back to school and they face the trauma of the last 3 months of this pandemic. So much has been taken away. What can we do to this generation of students to be there for them? Those are decisions that I can't make. It has to be to each individual, and I respect it. But I hope you all know that I plan to be back this fall, and I want all of you to seriously give your full heart and full discernment to coming back, to being there to meet the needs of our children. Now, there's a more formal answer to that that's probably a lot shorter, and I'll let Dr. Nixon share that.
So the short answer is no, because we as a county do not control retirement. That entire system is controlled by VRS. So those are conversations, those are personal conversations that you will have with your families, and for guidance on that, VRS would be the best bet.
The next question is an email question. How will students have access to books if we go back virtually? Not all are available digitally. I'm going to let our instructional expert, Dr. Presidio, take a stab at that question.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Dr. Brabrand. So first of all, we hope that we're not going back to school virtually in the fall, and we believe that we're going to be going back with at least some ability to have students in our schools in the fall. That is our goal. We're preparing if we need to be in a virtual learning environment, if we have continued outbreaks of the virus into the school year next year. But in terms of access to materials and resources, we're going to be purchasing additional materials and resources that are in a digital format that students can access and utilize. And we'll have those at the elementary grades, grades K through 6. And we're working to get some additional books that can be provided to students at the primary grade levels as well. So we're going to have more resources, and we do believe that we're going to have the ability to provide students with opportunities to have both hardback books, hard copy books, as well as enhanced virtual resources when we return in the fall.
Thank you, Dr. Presidio. We got another question from email. Will students receive grades for distance learning in the fall? And I want to clearly share that the governor shared yesterday that school is back in session for the 2020-2021 school year. It will be all new instruction. It will be all graded instruction. So all students will be receiving grades. I do want to say that we did take a moment and worked very deeply and carefully as we encountered this unprecedented fourth quarter to try to come up with a grading policy that acknowledged the state guidance about new instruction and grading, while still giving an opportunity for students to have some opportunity to have their grade go up, but not go down. But no, we will have for the coming year all new instruction, and all instruction will be graded instruction. There's another email. Will FCPS offer child care options for teachers? There was an actual earlier call about that, and we did reference that as one of the supports for employees that we would really like to do. I don't have a final answer today. I don't have a guarantee, but I do guarantee you that we're going to do everything we can to try to provide through public and private networks and supports anything that we can do to support child care for our employees. Now we're going to take a phone call, and phone caller, welcome to the town hall. Thank you for being here.
Hello?
Hello, this is Dr. Brabrand. How are you this evening?
Very good, thank you.
Thank you for being here. What's your question?
My question is, how is social distancing applies to transportation employees, specifically bus drivers, attendants?
Yes, transportation is a very, very big part. Thank you for that question. It's a very, very big part of return to school. I know our director, Francine Furby, and our assistant superintendent for facilities and transportation, Jeff Plattenberg, are looking closely at the state guidance and what we can do not only to help protect our students, as we've already talked about, but especially what we can do to protect our bus drivers. We're looking at a lot of things about what requirements we may give students as they get onto the bus, and what are some additional protections that we can have not only for how they're seated on the bus, but for what the bus driver can have. I don't have all of those answers today because we just got the guidance from the state yesterday, but I need you to know that we need our bus drivers more than ever before, and we need to provide environments for them as absolutely safe as possible, because we need our bus drivers back, or we're not going to be able to do any of these return to school scenarios. So you have my commitment that we're going to do everything possible to keep our school buses safe while providing protections for our students and for our staff in transportation. Thank you so much for calling in. We have another phone call. Caller?
We just got the guidance from the state yesterday, but I need you to know that we need our bus drivers more.
Good evening, caller.
Hello?
Do you have a question?
Hello? Yes, I do. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Welcome to the town hall. This is Dr. Brabrand. What's your question?
Hi. So I know we're looking at different models for how we would start this school year, but I was wondering if something were to happen and we might have to adjust which direction we're going into, whether it's more face-to-face or more virtual teaching, how much notice would families be given prior to the adjustment?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's a great question. Well, first let me say, if we're in a face-to-face mode and we have an issue around a COVID-19 case for a student or staff member, we're going to immediately work with the health department and then share with the community what additional actions need to be taken. So we probably are not going to have a lot of advance notice if we need to take decisive action around an outbreak in one of our schools. We would want to do everything possible if, as the state has been doing, and we're working closely with the health department, to look at trends. Do we see the trends going down, which they are right now in the last several weeks in Virginia, and we're even seeing some downward trend in Fairfax in the Northern Virginia area, or if trends are going up. So if we're able to start to continue to do that kind of trend analysis, we may be in a position to give more advanced advanced notice around work and work expectations. So we're going to do our very best, because we know when we make sudden decisions and we ask you all to change your schedules on a dime, it's very disruptive to our employees and to our families. And we're going to strive, and I freely admit, I did not do that as well these last 3 months during this crisis as I could have. And I promise I am going to do everything I can to do a better job of communicating in advance when I can moving forward. So thank you for your call. We have another email, which is, do you have a time frame for a staff training calendar? Yes, that time frame I shared just a little bit ago. We're going to have, I did a final review of it today, and that calendar should be out by the end of this week, next week at the latest. But we know, given that this is the last week of school, the teachers really like getting that out, and we are going to strive to have that out on Friday at the latest. So really look for it, and we're excited to have OPLFE work with all our departments to get that done as you're leaving for the school year. Let's take another phone call. Caller, hello, good evening. Welcome to the town hall.
Hello, thank you, Dr. Brabrand. Earlier you stated that we have a large subpool, and I feel like I need to preface my question with an emphatic correction to that, because we have never had enough subs to cover our classrooms, even pre-pandemic. It's always been a scramble, often a fruitless scramble. More often than not, for me as a special education teacher, that was a fruitless scramble, especially toward the end of the year when we have a lot of sub attrition. And a lot of our subs are retired teachers who I can see would have a lot less reason to come back now. Our professional development has moved largely online. The out-of-school daytime professional development is a small fraction of what we had when I first started teaching in the county. So what are we going to do to recruit, retain, reward, and get us the subs that we need in order to make this happen?
Well, thank you for that question. And I do stand corrected. You are right that we have not been able to fully fill substitutes, frankly, from the first day I've walked in the county over 25 years ago. We've got our fill rates up pretty high. They've gone up and down over the years. And we did get a little bit of benefit by restoring the retiree sub rate 2 years ago to the higher rates before they were cut in the budget some years ago, before I was here. We need to work very closely. I know Sean McDonough has a sub task force, and maybe Dr. Nixon, if you'd like to share a little bit about that sub task force and some of the things they're looking at.
Sure. So prior to the school closure in March, our talent acquisition management office had convened a multi-stakeholder group to really kind of explore and unpack this issue of the challenge around substitute teachers. And the team was coming together to make some recommendations. Some of the things that we know that we need to do is to fortify the sub-orientation that we have, working closely with our principals to look at how we more effectively onboard subs to make sure that we're keeping them. What kind of professional development opportunities can we continue to offer our substitute teachers as well? I want to share that this matter and the issue of substitute teachers is something that many of our neighboring districts are also facing. I know it doesn't necessarily help when you're the one who needs the sub, and the urgency is in our division too, but I just wanted to underscore that it is a challenge that many of our neighbors are also facing. And so unfortunately, as I said prior to the closure, the group was going to convene and come together and do a final presentation. That work will resume. We will have perhaps the last meeting to make sure that we can touch base with all of these stakeholders. But we do have in our TAM office dedicated staff working to making sure that we are fortifying that orientation program for our subs and making sure that we have better touch bases with the subs to get feedback from them on their experiences and share that feedback back with our principals to make sure that we're doing all that we can to kind of look at the ways that we need to work in collaboration for the retention pieces.
Okay, we'll take another phone call. Caller, thank you for calling in tonight.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm okay. So I am a PAC teacher, preschool autism class teacher.
Thank you. God bless you.
Thanks. So my classroom and the classroom next to mine, we both have very small classrooms, tiny. We have anywhere between 6 to 8 children, no windows. I just wonder, how would this social distancing work for our class?
Right. I want to be clear that I think there are some situations, again, as the governor said, social distancing to the greatest extent possible. We need to be honest with folks and with one another, our families and our staff, that in a case, for example, like a preschool autism class, it is not realistic if we bring kids back face to face that we're going to be maintaining a 6-foot social distancing at all times. We're going to need to provide additional safety supports and PPE supports for our staff members. And as part of the budget that we're looking at, that I will be sharing on Monday, we won't be just talking about the potential for masks for our students and staff, but in some classrooms, additional face shields, gowns, gloves, and other protective devices or accessories that we haven't even reviewed yet to give teachers and students the safety that they need and deserve. So we are looking through all of that. We recognize that we need to meet the needs of all of our students, especially our special populations, and we've got to figure out the way to do that safely for them and for our staff. So we are looking at those, and we'll be putting that forward in the budget that we share next week at the school board meeting. We now have an email. Will Gatehouse and Willow Oaks facilities, when will they open? Will those employees continue to work remotely? Well, in phase 2, the governor did encourage teleworking to continue and to limit gatherings larger than 50 at any one time. But we do recognize as we're returning to school and moving into phase 2 that the moment is arriving to transition from our schools closed to further notice for our schools and offices to reopen. And I will be sharing more information around that plan as I work with the school board in the weeks ahead. I can say to you that I believe that in the weeks ahead, as we transition over the summer, we will be transitioning from our schools being and offices being closed to being open with social distancing measures, with the health and safety measures, and with the encouragement for as much teleworking as we can do to continue even as we open. So thank you. We have one more email for the town hall. When will curriculum and pacing guides be updated so that teachers can begin planning for next year? And I'm going to let Dr. Presidio take that one.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Brabrand. And it's a great question. We know that you need that information as soon as possible, so we're working really hard. And I want to thank all of the folks in central office who are doing that work, writing curriculum, developing those learning packets, making sure that they're getting distributed. Again, heroic efforts by the folks in central office doing that work. And we know that you need those materials as soon as possible. I can't give you a exact date at this time, but please know that we're working as hard as possible to get them to you as quickly as possible. And to provide a product to you that you can use that will make your job easier when you return in the fall. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Presidio. You know, I want to thank all of you again for coming out this evening. Again, thank you, Dr. Presidio, for taking your time. Thank you, Dr. Nixon, for taking your time. I recognize the sacrifices that have been asked of you over the last few months are extraordinary. There has been no time in the history of Fairfax County Public Schools like these past several months. And yet you have stepped up and gone above and beyond to serve our students, their families, and our entire community. We are committed to continuing to do everything we can to support you over the summer and as we transition to return to school. And I thank you for your engagement and your support. I will continue to do everything I can as superintendent and work very closely with the Fairfax County School Board to make sure that we continue to be a lighthouse school district leading the way as we look at return to school. Thank you so much for coming out. Thank you so much for your advocacy and involvement, and we're going to continue to do everything we can to make the return to school for 2021 a memorable year, not just for our staff, but also for our students. Thank you for coming out this evening, and we'll see you all really soon. Bye-bye.